Erev Tov B'tai. Let's continue talking about preparations for Passover. I want to tell you, right, that as we said, a person should do Haggalah on his silverware that he uses with hot, with on the flame. But we spoke about that already. But I want to now continue to talk about other things, right, which are similar to that. One thing is about the drinking glasses. Right? So anything which is, the rule is like this: anything which is made out of glass, it doesn't need to be kashered. It just needs to be washed, rinsed with soap, and it's ready to go. And what's the reason for that? The reason is because glass doesn't absorb any flavors. And even if you tell me if it does absorb, it doesn't give it out back. So therefore, glass is not doesn't require any hechsher, just rinsing and washing, and it's ready to go. That includes whether it's talking about drinking glasses or you're talking about plates. Also, there are plates that are made out of glass. Also, there is something like that, right? Even though they don't look like glass, some of them they look like regular plates, but they're glass. Like there's this company Corel, like this, right? Something like that. They look regular, but they're made out of glass. They're not porcelain, right? So those plates, they don't need any texture, as we said, right? Just rinse them and wash them, and they're ready to use for Passover. That's all you need. It doesn't really need anything else. So that's the rule with glass. The Ashkenazim, by the way, they're machmir. You know what about this? According to their custom, they have to also machshir the glass. If they want to use the glass, what they do is they soak it in water, for like 3 days. Yeah. Yeah, this is Ashkenazi custom, They got it from Chabad, something like that. You understand? By the way, those are all minhagim, from Bukhara, those Ashkenazi customs. You don't have to keep them. Because we already left, Bukhara, we're not there anymore, we're here, so we're not obligated to keep those customs anymore. Those Ashkenazi customs that they had over there. We can tell them, shalom, kol tuv, right, later out. We don't have to do those things anymore. Even though those things were done over there in the old country, that's different, right? So as we said, right, the Ashkenazim, they're machmir with glass, they don't just use it regular like we do. It's a different custom. So that's regarding the glass. Now let's talk about porcelain, right, which is the plates, and all kinds of things like this. So if it's a drinking, glass, a cup, let's say made out of porcelain, right? Doesn't need to be any hechsher. No, it doesn't need any hechsher. Why? Because we don't drink chametz, usually with these cups. What chametz are you drinking with this? You're just drinking coffee and tea, things like this, right? There's no chametz in there, so you don't really have to. Kasher those cups, those drinking vessels. The truth is, that if a person, has enough money, enough of a budget, he should really, it's a good idea to have like a special set, of porcelain for Passover, special set, special for Passover, and he puts it in his closet, once a year he takes it out, and uses those plates, and cups. It's good, it's proper to do this. If a person can afford it, and he has the money, he doesn't have any shortage of money, so he can buy good quality, thing, for Passover, best quality you should get. Why? Because it's a Yom Tov holiday, right? So a person shouldn't buy cheap stuff, for the Yom Tov, cheap porcelain. You should buy the good stuff, the best stuff, Don't use the good stuff for Yom Chol and the bad stuff for Passover. That's the opposite, right, of what you should be doing. Just the opposite, For Yom Tov, for Passover, use the good one, and use the cheap one for Yom Chol, right? You have different types. That's the more proper thing to do. Also for Shabbat, right? For Shabbat, you use the best one, Shabbat, Lichvot Shabbat, Kodesh. So that's something else. But if you're using for Yom Chol, you don't have to use the best stuff, what for what? What do you need it for? Who are you giving kavod to? There's no kavod. There's no for anybody. So you don't really need it. So it depends, right? But if a person doesn't have, enough money, the truth is, like those good plates, and those good porcelain, they cost a lot of money. We're talking about thousands of dollars. Right? You know what I'm talking about, right? $2,000, $3,000 for a whole set, right? You can go, to the store and buy, German one, whatever, something really good, from Europe, right? French one, I don't know, whatever it is, right? All that good stuff. They cost a lot of money, so not everybody can afford, to have two of those. One for Passover, one for Yom Chol, one for Shabbat. You cannot. So if you can't afford it, you can just wash it and use it. Wash it with soap and use it. What can you do, right? And the reason why I tell you this is because we don't really use those dishes, on the fire. They're more like just to to take from the pot, and put it inside the plate. So it's not a kli rishon. It's not something which is on the fire, So therefore, if a person doesn't really have another set, and it's glazed, with the coating, so it doesn't really allow the flavors to go in there so much, One rabbi told me, I remember many years ago, he told me, he says, I called the companies, that make these porcelain dishes, all these things. I called them, he says, and they told me, this is what he told me. He says, the company told me that the flavors don't go through that glazing. So they don't let the flavors go through. So if that's the case, Behemet, right, if a person has no other choice, right, to use only, the one that he uses also for Yom Chol, he can use it, if he has nothing else, or the other option is to use, the disposable, the plastic ones, right, the paper. Not everybody likes to do that, to use the disposable, because they're cheap, they look cheap, they feel cheap. It's not really covered for the holiday, to bring this cheap stuff on the table, But some people like to use it, whatever, Especially the young people, right? The young people don't care. They want to just throw it away. They don't care about nothing. They don't care about the quality. They don't care about the kavod. They just want to, they want to rest, they don't want to wash the dishes. They don't want to take care of it. Young people are, very, very practical, They just want to, so it depends, what kind of person you are. I know there are many families that use, all the time, plastic paper, for all the time they use. They never have normal dishes, they don't use nothing normal in their house. Everything is throwaway. You throw this away, you throw your wife away, you throw your husband away, right? Everything you throw away. You throw your children away. Everything is disposable, that's the way it is, right? Okay, right? That's the generation that we live in today. Everything is disposable. Okay, whatever, right? So it depends on what it is. The truth is, honestly, according to halakha, it's not proper, to use for the Yom Tov especially, and for Shabbat, disposable dishes, It's not kavod.
But if you're using, let's say, first you get fish. Can I
Right.
use for a fish, let's say?
Yeah, so this is a good question. Fish, fish, meat. So the truth is, there's no problem with that. All you do is you just have to rinse it, and use it for the meat, You don't have to use a different one. If you have it, usually you have a different one.
We use for a fish, disposable.
Plastic
Then we use.
Yeah, but the truth is, that you don't have to be makpid about the fish, so much. What does that mean? Just don't put them in the same plate, together. That's what we don't want, But one after the other is okay. As you rinse it, you wash it. No problem, There's no problem with that. I'm sorry?
Invited a lot of people, 30, 40 people.
Yeah, that's the thing,
You cannot use porcelain, you have plastic.
Right, you have plastic, whatever. So the truth is, I'll tell you something interesting. When I was in Israel, in Yerushalayim, there was one Dayan over there, Rabbi. They used to invite me for Shabbat, and I saw the way he operates in his house because, he's the chief rabbi of the Syrian community over there, in Yerushalayim. So a lot of people come to visit him, from Brooklyn, from New Jersey, Deal, Yeah, so he always has a lot of guests, how many guests does he have? Usually on Shabbat table, 20 people, at least, if not more. So it's a big crowd.
Yeah.
Does he use plastic? Never. Never uses plastic. Always, everything nice, kavod, good one. He's a smart guy, But the truth is, he's smart, but he has the money, he has a maid, So the maid washes the dishes, he has a Filipino. He has so the Filipino maid, comes and, washes the dishes, so, his wife doesn't have to do everything. She has a helper. There's many like, this Filipinos over there in Israel, they have. Helping, in the house and this kind of maids, right? All kinds of stuff like that. Okay, from all kinds of places, right? Whatever they come from. So that's the thing, So depends, right, on your situation. But the truth is, it's not really so much kavod to use paper and plastic, for the holidays, for Yom Tov and also for Shabbat as well. It's not kavod. What can I tell you? Some people they want to use it, let them use it. They say, oh, we buy the nice one, nice plates. They're also the nice ones. Yeah. And they're strong. But still, it's not the same thing. What can I tell you? It is what it is. What can I tell you? What can I say? Anyway, right? So that's what I tell you, right? If you have another set, which is a nice, good set for the holiday, use that one. That's the best thing. But if you don't have, just wash what you have, and use that, right? You got no choice. What else can you do, right? got no, as we said, right? The other option is to use the paper and the plastic, whatever, right? As we said, not the best thing in the world. Okay, so that's regarding that, right? That issue. Now let's talk about. Did we talk about koshering ovens? We spoke about that, right? Yeah, we talked about that. So let's talk about the other things, right? What about the plata? We use for Shabbat, right? So if you want to use a plata, for Passover, how do you kosher this, So true. I'm sorry? Yeah.
נותנים לו שהכל יורד ממנו, אחר כך שוטפים מנהגים, ועושים את נייר כסף.
Okay, but the problem is that they don't understand Hebrew, my audience. I have to tell them in English. So I gotta tell them in English. Okay, so here's the thing, right? What do? The thing is, the plata gets very hot, so because of that, sometimes we put even lechem, halot, right, on top of it, to heat it up. We do that. Ashkenazim, they don't do this, They're afraid of this, We're not afraid. We're not afraid of nothing. Right? So we put it, to heat it up, to toast, the challah, to make it toast a little bit, toasty. We do that. We have no problem with that. So the thing is, since it touched the halot and the chametz, you gotta do something, to be machshir. So there's two options you have, right? Always, the first thing you should do is clean it. First take a trapka, or a sponge, right, with some soap, clean it, nice, good. That's number one, step number one. Number two, if you want to use it like normal, like bare, like the way it is, take some hot water from a chaynik, and pour it on top like this, to kosher the plata. But there's another option also, if you want to cover it with tin foil, aluminum foil, you don't have to put hot water. You don't need it. Because the cover takes care of it. I'm sorry?
It's dangerous. There is electricity also.
Yeah, well, you're not going to put it when it's on, You're gonna so you let it dry for a while. Usually comes out okay. It could be, you never know. You never know what's going to be, But that's what they say in the books, In the books it says like this, to put some water on top of it. But the truth is, the best thing to do, if you want to avoid this problem, as you said, just take some aluminum foil, and cover it up. This way you don't have any problems. You don't need the hot water. You're all good. You understand what I'm saying? That's pretty much the way it works, with the plata. So if you want to use it, this is the way you do it, It's very simple. Nothing really complicated. Also, you shouldn't use, obviously, I have to tell you this, but you got to change your tablecloth, for Passover, Don't use the same one that you're using all year, because it has chametz on it. Yeah. So you got to change it. That's the thing, right? Or you got to wash it, take it into the laundry, right? And wash it, or one or the other. Either change it or wash it. Whatever you do, depends on what you do, right? Depends on what kind of tablecloths you have. So whatever it is you do, right? If you're using a bare table, if you're using a bare table, no tablecloth. The truth is, halakha says, I have to tell you, sometimes one person asked me on Main Street, he said, Rabbi, I went to a certain shiur, the rabbi was speaking there. And he says, the rabbi said something surprised me, he says. Well, I tell him, what did the rabbi tell you? What did he say? So he says, he told us that on Shabbat, you have to have a tablecloth on the table. You cannot use a bare table. You know what I mean? So he told me, he asked him, he says, Rabbi, is he right, the rabbi? He's right, this rabbi? So I said, yeah, he's right. It says in halakha like this, You cannot use a bare table for Shabbat. You have to cover it, with a tablecloth. It's not kavod. You know what I mean? To use a bare table for Shabbat, So same thing for Yom Tov. Same thing, right? It's all one. So what does that mean? Get a nice tablecloth, nice white one, for kavod of Shabbat or for kavod of Yom Tov. The minhag is to use white, because Shabbat white, that's the minhag, right? It's nice and kavod. So you get a nice white tablecloth, but for Passover, right, you gotta either wash it or put another one, right? You gotta change it. That's the thing, right? As we said. But if you're using a bare table, right, without, in other words, in your kitchen, let's say, right, you have a kitchen table, right, and you don't put a tablecloth there, on your kitchen table. It's bare, it's like formica, whatever, it's some kind of wood, So you don't put a tablecloth always on the kitchen table. It's not really, it's not customary to do that. So what do you do over there? So you should clean it, nice, with soap, whatever, and, like that, right? So make sure that there's no chametz left there. Some people, they put also hot water on that, the table, so they do that too, It's not really necessary to do this, honestly, Or if you want to do a different way, put a tablecloth now, like all year you didn't have tablecloth. Now put a tablecloth, so this way it'll be covered. So this way it'll be easier, One or the other, right? Something like that, right? Either clean it, cover it, right? Or put some boiling water, right? If you want to be really chassid, you want to be, you want to be machmir, right? That's the way to do, right? These kinds of things. Okay, that's the idea. So So the rule is like this, Rabbi, that anything which comes into contact with chametz, needs to be kashered. So what does that mean? If you have any, right, I'll give you an example, right, that they use a lot in the books. There are sometimes, people who have a hot water urn, that they use to make hot water for Shabbat, Yom Tov. And the thing is, these people, they're a little bit cuckoo. So what they do is, they put, like mezonot on top of the kumkum, to heat up the mezonot, to make it hot. Pastries, borekas. All kinds of things, So if you do this, you know what I mean? And it's touching the kumkum, this hot borekas, you gotta kasher this thing. You can't use it for Passover. It's a problem, You gotta do hagalah on this thing. So, you gotta be careful, You gotta to know. Don't, if you want to use your hot water urn for Passover without kashering it, don't put any chametz on it, all year, right? Otherwise, you're gonna have a problem. And so, if you did put chametz, you gotta kasher it. You gotta put it into hagalah. That's the way to do it. All kinds of things like this. What can we do, right? We have to. So, what about all the other stuff? So, the truth is that a person, should clean his, all the other stuff as well. The refrigerator, needs a good cleaning. Because there's always chametz in there, getting left over. So it should be cleaned, the refrigerator. Things like this, right? Also, the stovetop, right? It should be cleaned, because there's always things which are spilling there.
Yeah.
All kinds of chametz are being spilled there. At least clean it good. Some people also put the hot water, as we said, right? Boiling water. They boil the water and they pour it all on top of the whole stove. That's what they do. Some people do that too. You don't really have to do this so much. Unless the food is touching it. But if the food is not touching that part, you don't really need this so much. You don't really to put hot water, to put boiling water. But if it's if it's touching there, you put stuff there, food there, hot, and it gets hot, so then it does need that. It depends on what you do, right? So what does that mean? What I mean to tell you is like this, right? Let's say a person, on his stovetop, right? He puts, on the whole year he puts chametz there, and it gets hot, and now he wants to put also matzah there, whatever on Passover. So he's got to kasher it now. He needs the hot water. That's the thing, But if he doesn't do that, he doesn't put food on top of the stove, like bare on the bare stove without any covering, So then he doesn't need to put hot water. He doesn't need all that, right? Also the grates themselves, where the pot goes, right, on top of it, the grate. You place it on top of it, right? That grate, some people say also that needs, like to do hagalah, to put. But the truth is, if everything gets burned over there. So it doesn't really need hagalah. And also the food doesn't touch over there. You're putting the pot there. You're not putting the food on there. So that's you don't really need that so much, unless the food is touching it. That's something else, right? The food is not touching usually these grates. The thing is, that sometimes what people do is they're like last minute, like they don't have a shank bone, So what they want to do is they take a piece of chicken, and they want to roast it on top of the flame. So it goes on top of the flame, like this, bare, on top of the flame, bare. If you did that, so then, if you're doing stuff like that, it's a little bit different. But in general, right, the food doesn't touch there, over there. You know what I mean? So it doesn't, and also, basar, it's just meat, so meat doesn't really have any problem with that anyway. It's not chametz anyway. So that's the rule, when it comes to preparations, everything needs its own thing. What else do we want to say?
Now about carpet.
I'm sorry?
About carpet.
Bread, you're not Persian, are you? You're not Persian. Okay, Persians, they like carpets, You know how it is, right? Always they're selling the carpets, the Persians. So, I'll tell you the emet. Right? All you have to do with the carpet is just vacuum it, because if there's any chametz in there, that's it, You don't have to go now. You don't have to go with a microscope, inside your carpet looking, for little things, little minuscule. The truth is, I'll tell you one thing. We'll stop here. I don't want to go too long. The rule is like this, When we already spoke, right, about this, that the night before Passover we do bedikat chametz, right? We check for chametz. Yeah. So as we said, right, after we finish the bedikah, we do bitul. We nullify. Kol chamira deika birushuti, right? We say this declaration, right? You should say it in language you understand, by the way. If you don't understand Aramaic, don't say it in Aramaic. Say it in Russian, say it in English, what language you have to understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, right? So it depends on which language you speak. But anyway, right, the point is, once you do bitul, you nullify the chametz, all the little pieces, are already not a problem anymore. Those little crumbs, inside your carpet, with a microscope, and you don't have to worry about that. I mean, that's not, because the bitul takes care of that. So the bitul doesn't take care of what? Whatever is bigger than a kazait, something bigger, than a kazait. This bitul doesn't work for that, according to the rabbi. So you gotta also burn it, bring it to the rabbi, right? He'll burn it for you, right over here, right? He's got a fire over here, esh. He's got an esh, right? He'll burn it for you. That's the thing, So those little things inside your carpet, don't worry about that. Just vacuum it, and if something got left in there, you bottled it, that's it. You nullified it, right? So it's good. So the nullification, the bitul works for anything which is smaller than a kazait, But something bigger than kazait, you have to also burn it. Or get rid of it, right? Flush it down your toilet, whatever it is, right? Depends on what you can do. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen. Rabbi Chanan, שאומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לעזור את ישראל, לפיכך חיבה להם תורה ומצוות שאמר בני חפש, למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר.